The son of evil is to be a hero. He carries both light and darkness.
Hello everyone, welcome to What If Deku was the son of All for One and became the greatest hero of all movie. Before we start, please go support LOL World 345 for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistaken character's gender, but of course Deku is a male. The world has changed drastically since the appearance of the so-called quirks. Before this, the society was forced to find ways to deal with the new dangers present, since some people used their quirks or gifts in a bad way to cause harm. Before this, the work of hero arose to fight against evil and fight for the good of society. Now after so much time, we are in the role of a green-haired boy, son of one of the greatest villains in the world, and his path to being the best hero in the world. The price of being the son of a villain. It was night, the streets were empty, and in the house you could see a green-haired woman holding a child in her arms. He was crying while his mother with tears tried to calm him down. Outside his house, you could see a villain on his knees with a metal mask. The police were extremely cautious as they handcuffed him with a kind of metal gloves attached to each other. When they placed them, his two hands automatically joined together. The villain stood up with a blank stare and turned to see his wife and son. A blonde-haired hero put a hand on his back. Almight. They'll be fine, the police will not take any action against them, they have nothing to do with this, it has been proven. All for one. I never wanted to involve them in this, they are my family. Almight. And for doing your misdeeds you lost them. All for one gave one last look to his wife, hoping that she would at least look at him even if she was angry, but she turned around with her son in her arms and went into the house with tears. All for one just bowed his head and walked slowly to an armored truck with several patrol cars and other police elements, in addition to superheroes that protected the area. They took the villain escorting the armored truck, while the citizens applauded all the heroes, but especially the blonde. Before following, the other heroes took a look at the house of All for One's family, and with a sad face he left. The years passed, and the entire city found out that the little boy named Izuku was the son of the most dangerous and wanted villain in the world, which is why all adults forbade their children from hanging around him. Some even told their children that if he approached them, they should hit him and run away from there, which several did. Even taking advantage of the fact that Izuku's little boy was quite shy and hid him. Moreover, the latter just returned home and smiled at his mother covered in bruises, and she hugged him crying. She couldn't spend much time with him, since she had two jobs which were very tiring. She was a receptionist in an office, and also had to work as an architect, which was very difficult. She had to go through very rigorous tests since everyone knew she was the ex-wife of the most dangerous villain there was to date, but with all the effort in the world to send him to a good school, she couldn't spend that much time with him, and she was terrified by the idea that one day he wouldn't return home because of all the abuse he suffered from the children, and despite the fact that she complained to the school and the community, they didn't listen to her. Inko. He is a human being and it is not his fault what his father has done. Principal. What if he follows in his footsteps and becomes a maniac? You never know, maybe you have a murderer inside your house. At this, Inko slapped the principal and left the school angrily. She didn't have many friends, but the few she had helped him in every way they could. One of the closest was Mitsuki Bakugo, who occasionally took care of Izuku at home with her daughter Katsuki. She didn't get close to him much, but not because she was afraid of him or anything, they were simply opposite poles. He was a reserved and quite shy child when it came to making friends, and she was quite serious. She had a rude expression most of the time, and whenever someone tried to have a fight with her she won, and one of the moments that marked the little one the most was the day he had to discover his quirk. At that time the doctor was a military man, since they wanted to know if he had a dangerous ability. That day all the children stayed away from him until they waited for the doctor's results. Doctor. I'm afraid that he doesn't have any quirk. Inko. What? Doctor. I'm sorry ma'am, but your son does not have a quirk. For some reason there is a defect in his DNA, and he does not have this characteristic. Inko. But there is only a 5% chance of this happening. Doctor. Well, it seems that in this case it was your son who was unlucky. Well, given the news I have to go to my superiors, sorry ma'am. The doctor left the room, and Izuku was sitting in a small chair holding his knees and hiding his face in it. All the children entered the classroom, but stopped bothering him that day. His mother was outside the classroom, thinking what to do until she decided to enter and carried him. He was crying as quietly as he could in his mother's arms, and she went to his house. From that day on Izuku continued to suffer abuse, but this time not from several people but from one. His friend Katsuki defended him from the other abusers by chasing them away, but she hit him from time to time, not very hard, just a few light blows to the shoulder. The years passed and society slowly began to accept Izuku more and more, although there were still the occasional person who continued to call him a phenomenon, but at least he no longer had just one friend. Now at 15 years old, he was 1.70 centimeters tall, his hair was curly and somewhat long, not much also he wore glasses, his build was thin, and when someone spoke to him he normally responded nervously. That was a bad habit that was caused due to all the abuse he suffered as a child, but that he tried to control. On the other hand, Katsuki was about 4 or 5 centimeters shorter than him, her hair was somewhat short blonde, and despite being considered the strongest in her school, she was considered an ice queen for not showing very often other emotions, other than anger or irritation, and she was quite beautiful. She had a fairly developed body for her age, which was the same as Izuku. Teacher. Well, as you know, 1 month ago you took the high school entrance exam. Here I have the results of each of you. I will name the school and the students who applied to attend it, and I will mention if they passed or not. The students were named and in the end only 2 were left, Izuku and Katsuki, both of whom had applied to UA, the most prestigious hero school of all time. Teacher. I think it is not necessary to clarify, but just in case I remind you too, this exam is only a pass for you to take 2 other even more difficult ones at UA in a few months. UA will be in charge of notifying you when. Katsuki. Sorry Deku, but I think you will have to wait to take it again at another school. Izuku. Why yes Katsuki-san. In public he calls her that Katsuki-san, worse in private or once in a while in public when Kaken slips out, a kind of nickname that he gave her over time and never left her. Teacher. Although I'm surprised to say it, takes off his glasses, both passed. Congratulations Midoriya, and an apology in advance. Everyone fell silent and seconds later a loud scream could be heard throughout the school. Izuku couldn't hold back his excitement and with a blush of happiness he hugged Katsuki. She simply pushed him a little and went to the teacher. Katsuki. This has to be wrong, he can't have passed the exam. Teacher. Of course he can, he already did. Young Midoriya is quite intelligent, he surprises me more than you. Katsuki. But he's a damn quirkless. At this the classroom fell silent and Katsuki squeezed his hand, remembering that he had ruined the moment. He slowly turned to look at Izuku, and he had a few tears on his face. The entire classroom looked down, since they knew they could say anything to him. Useless, inept, son of a villain, phenomenon, but interfering with his dream of being a hero, and reminding him that he was a person without a quirk, was the worst thing for him. Katsuki tried to speak, but he simply wiped his tears and left the classroom in the direction of the bathroom. Katsuki. Shit, he said quietly and quickly followed Izuku. He entered the bathroom despite Katsuki shouting his name through the hallways. He locked himself in one and sat on the toilet. He covered his ears and stayed there for about 10 minutes. Time passed, and Izuku heard someone knocking on the bathroom door, but decided not to open it. Inko. It's me son, can you come out? Izuku slowly opened the door and with his eyes slightly red from crying he asked his mom. Izuku. Is it really that bad to be quirkless? At this Inko just hugged Izuku and left with him in her arms. He had his head resting on her shoulder and they went to his house. Katsuki heard their little conversation secretly and knocked on the wall lightly and then returned to the classroom. Teacher. I see you didn't solve the problem, take a seat at once, there are 15 minutes left until the last class ends. The class ended and Katsuki left quickly, went to Izuku's house and knocked on the door. Izuku opened it and noticed that Katsuki had a rectangular box in his hands. Izuku opened it and could see that they were black glasses. In the middle of these there was a note. Izuku opened it and the word sorry was written on it. Katsuki. I know I have offended you in many ways, but that was seriously not my intention. I know how much it affects you to be told that and I am sorry. I was just quite surprised looking into his eyes. Izuku. Calm down, I did not know how much you hated me playing with you. Katsuki. It's not that, I was just very surprised and I'm sorry. I know it's been a long time since I told you that because I knew how much it affected you, but it slipped out. Katsuki looked down for a few seconds and then asked in a whisper. Katsuki. Do you forgive me? Izuku. I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. Katsuki. Could you forgive me? A little louder but inaudible anyway. Izuku. Kaken, I can't understand what you're saying. Katsuki. Do you forgive me? Saying this she looked up with a slight blush on her cheeks and Izuku smiled tenderly with his new glasses. Izuku. Of course, after all we are friends. Katsuki heard that and smiled a little. She was about to leave a little more relieved until Izuku gave her a somewhat short hug. Izuku. Thanks for the detail, I'll make it up to you later. Izuku closed the door and entered his house. Katsuki walked home in a relieved manner talking to herself. Katsuki. My god, I am stupid, what kind of woman makes the man she likes cry? And more knowing that he is someone so delicate. I must stop being so arrogant and think a little before speaking. Ah well, it seems I succeeded, who would say it, who am I kidding? I knew, but I gave myself false illusions. I wouldn't fall in love with any loser. A week passed and the two of them received an email via computer where there was a video made by Almight, the #1 hero, saying the date of the exam that would be in about 10 months. Before that, Kitsuki prepared himself physically for a long time, and the last 2 months he spent studying very little but something, unlike Izuku, who studied for 4 months and learned everything he had to learn. Well, after all, he was a brainiac since he was a child, since he read a lot because he was alone most of the time. The other part, from time to time he helped Kitsuki or trained with her going out for a run. But her condition was not very good, let's say, something that Kitsuki took care of to improve. They went out every morning to run about 5 kilometers. Later she taught him to defend himself, although it seemed that she had him as her training sack. At first the training left Izuku practically dead, but after a few months he began to get used to the pain, and it suddenly disappeared. In the last 2 months that Kitsuki spent studying, he went out to train in his own way, going from being someone somewhat thin to having a not very surprising but noticeable musculature, although he still had that tender angel face and was still too shy. The long-awaited day finally arrived, and they both arrived at UA, where there were quite a few young people their age waiting to go through to present for their opportunity. As the minutes passed, several heroes began to organize lines by the initials of their names, so they had to separate. The minutes passed, and everyone was put in a kind of waiting room with the initial of their name in large letters. Everyone was waiting, some eating, others reading, or others simply sitting. After 5 minutes a screen appeared and on it you could see the hero present Mick. Present Mick. Well, young people, as you know, first is the skill test. When the gates in front of you open, the test will begin. This consists of the following. There will be robots that will be protecting certain areas of the field. In each of these there are approximately 20 cards with a word approved and a code. The objective is to take a card and leave the place without them being taken away. The area closest to the exit is the most complicated, and even so there is a great distance, which is 10 kilometers, in which they will have to protect their card at all costs. If they destroy the robots they will be awarded points if they pass the test for the written exam. The points vary in size, but the largest ones, which are only 2, are equivalent to 50 points out of 1000, necessary to pass the test, so you know it is a great opportunity for everyone. Now we must make something very clear: everything counts here, except attempted murder. Of course, worse, any type of attack or form of defense is acceptable. We want to see how well they perform or what their strategy is. Everyone nodded at Present Mick's words, and he began to count down from 5. When he reached 0 the doors opened, and everyone ran out to the designated areas. Everyone had been given a paper map indicating which areas were. Izuku ran and hid in a rock quickly, while most of the participants began to fight among themselves. Izuku took out his map and began to memorize it quickly. When he finished he ran out and went to the farthest area, but not before escaping from some robots. They were small, but he still preferred to avoid trouble. When he got there after about 30 minutes he hid in a building. He was going up the stairs when he noticed that there were guard robots and leaned against a wall. He saw them out of the corner of his eye and noticed that the farthest one had a necklace with one of the cards. Izuku. Well, remember what Kaken said, hid weak areas like the neck or face. Wait, they are robots, do not have a weak area, do they? Izuku turned to look at the robots again and saw one with its back to him and could notice that it had an on and off switch. Izuku. Well, they are somewhat small. I grabbed them by the head, turned them around and turned them off. You can do it, Izuku, you can do it. Izuku slapped himself in the face and left his hiding place and turned off the first robot since it had its back to him. The others, upon hearing his footsteps, began to fire a kind of electric bullets that produced a non-lethal but painful shock. Izuku used the turned off robot as a shield, approached a bunch of them that kept shooting. Turned it on and pushed them. When they collided, one of them tried to shoot him, but Izuku took out a water bottle he had and sprayed water into the cannon, so the electricity combined with the water ended up frying everyone's circuits. Izuku ran towards the last robot, and when he was about to take his card, it got up and turned its entire body, hitting Izuku in the face. He shook his face a little and got up again, only this time a little nervous. Izuku. Okay, Izuku, if someone wants to hit you, you take them by the arm and using your body weight, you throw them to the ground and hit them in the face. Even saying it sounds complicated. The robot tried to hit Izuku again, but this time Izuku caught the blow, closed his eyes, and without realizing it threw it with the others, melting their circuits. Izuku. I did it. Izuku walked to the robot, and when it was time to take the card away, a small shock ran through his body. Izuku. Ouch. It seems they are not completely fried. Izuku hid his card in his clothes and quickly ran out of the place. While he was running he noticed that there was some kind of ice bridge, so he climbed onto it, quickly passing from building to building without making contact with the ground. At one point he felt the bridge begin to crack, so he looked behind him and ran faster. When he looked back at the path he crashed into someone's back and they fell, but Izuku reacted quickly and grabbed his hand. Izuku. I've got you. Izuku used some of his strength and helped the person he had knocked down get up. Izuku. Sorry I didn't notice you were there, I was a bit busy seeing how fragile the bridge was. It was designed to be used by one person. Hearing a female voice, Izuku opened his eyes and saw a woman with two-tone hair, white on one side and red on the other. Her hair was long and tied in a ponytail. Izuku stood up and shook her hand. Izuku. Izuku Midoriya. Todoroki. Todoroki Shaka, although this is not the place to introduce ourselves. Izuku. Right, by the way, do you already have a card? If not, I could help you get one. Todoroki. Is this a joke, right? Izuku. What are you talking about? Todoroki. Are you offering help to a rival? Izuku. Well, I don't see you that way, on the other hand, I think any of you could become my partner. Todoroki simply showed him his card and began to continue building his bridge. From his hand came a kind of ice streak that followed the path, and Izuku followed it. Izuku. It's surprising, how does it work? Todoroki. What? Todoroki turned around and saw that Izuku had a notebook in his hand and a pen while he ran. Todoroki. You're strange, but what does it matter? I can use one half of my body to create ice and the other half to create fire. I can use the ice to create things, like in this case a kind of bridges or sometimes a protective wall. Izuku. Wow, while writing down everything said it's surprising, I've never met someone who has a double quirk. Todoroki. It's not a double quirk, if I use my ice power too much I get partially frozen, so I have to keep it level, although I don't like using my fire side. Izuku. That must consume a lot of energy, it must be exhausting. Without realizing it, they both ended up reaching the finish line. There were already a few students there, among them Kitsuki, who when he saw Izuku arrive approached him, but was surprised to see Todoroki with him. Todoroki. Well, this ends our talk. Izuku. Oh, it was a pleasure, if we ever get in you can find me to ask me for anything. Izuku bowed and Todoroki just looked at Izuku in surprise and left. When Izuku got up, he noticed that Kitsuki was looking at him. Izuku. Hi Kaken. He raises his hand and approaches her, greeting her. Kitsuki. I see you made a friend, I'm happy for you, with a fake smile. Isaac. Well, I was on my way to the exit and I saw an ice bridge, so I used it to avoid problems and I ran into her. Well, she continued using her quirk, I asked her how it worked and so on, although I don't know if that is considered friendship. Kitsuki. I see, I'll go get something to eat, you can go study or do whatever you want. Izuku. Goodbye Kaken. They both said goodbye, and Izuku sat on a bench to wait for the test to end. While he was waiting he could hear many of the conversations of the other participants. Unknown. Did you hear? A Quirkless came to perform for UA. Unknown. Really? A Quirkless being a hero, I even see it difficult as someone of support. Unknown. It must be a simple rumor, someone who is Quirkless does not have the same opportunities as us, as bad as it sounds we are on another level. Unknown. Well, if there was one, they must have already been eliminated or something like that, I don't think they could get here. Unknown. Yes, but I'm surprised how they come to present themselves. I mean, you don't have an ability that defines you, and you come to present yourself to be a hero. They in their case, should be the one saved. Izuku just listened to other people's conversations with a huge desire to cry, but he held it in and got up from where he was and walked to a corner where there was a single chair. He sat down on it, took out his notebook, and began to write down the quirks he already knew and the new ones he saw today. When the test was over, everyone who passed were taken to different classrooms where they took a written exam. Izuku finished it quickly, but being sure that most of the answers were correct. When leaving UA he was given a paper explaining that he should enter an internet page within a week and verify if he had managed to get into the school. Izuku. Well, now I just have to wait, please God give me a chance, I'm not going to let you down, not your mom or dad wherever he is. Izuku looked up at the sky and then lowered his gaze and walked home to wait for the result. First days at UA. Izuku was at home reading a book quietly, his mother had gone to work and he was waiting for the results of the UA test. He got up to grab something to eat but noticed through the window that there was a fire somewhat close to his house. Izuku. I should call the police, the fire is very close. Izuku went to get his phone, but then he heard something fall in front of his house. He went to the door and when he opened it, he could see a black-haired man lying on the ground. Izuku approached him to help him and managed to lift him up. He was about to put him in his house when he woke up abruptly and pushed him. Oh sorry kid, a few seconds ago I was in the fire fighting a villain and I thought you were him. Izuku. No problem, do you want me to help you with something? Now that you mention it, come with me. The black-haired man grabbed Izuku's hand and ran quickly through the streets. Izuku. Wait a minute, what are you doing? I need you to help me, I hope you know how to fight. Izuku. Shouldn't I call other heroes? I'm going to use you as bait, let them catch you as a hostage, and when they're focused on me attack. Izuku. Good, remember only hit the fragile areas, neck, face, stomach and so on. Izuku started to get nervous, and when he reached the fire he slipped between the buildings, and when he saw several villains he pretended to run past and fall. One of them quickly grabbed him and caught him. At that moment the man appeared. "Leave the hostages. Villain. Let us go and you can get out of here." "I can't do that." The man stared at the villains and Izuku took advantage of the situation. He freed himself from the grip, surprising the villain, and gave him a hard blow to the face with his eyes closed. He fell to the ground sitting down holding his nose. One of his companions pulled out a metal pipe and threw it at Izuku, but he ducked, covering his head and closing his eyes. The black-haired man quickly ran to a couple of the villains and began to fight with them. Izuku looked at him fascinated but received a blow to the rib that knocked him to the ground. "Villain. Stupid kid." Izuku held the area of the blow, but the man grabbed him by the shoulders, put him on his feet, and began to hit him in the face, destroying his glasses in the process. Izuku fell to his knees to the ground and saw a piece of broken glass, so he held it with his hand without him noticing. "Villain. I'll teach you manners." The man grabbed him by the hair, but Izuku stuck the glass in the villain's other free hand. He let go and grabbed his hand tightly in pain. Izuku ran from the scene to take cover behind a building. He stopped to rest, but heard footsteps near him, so he ran and hid behind a garbage collector. The villain had his left hand with a large wound and was walking furiously. Izuku covered his mouth so as not to make a noise, and the villain passed in front of him and did not see him. Izuku waited a few seconds and left there, but just as he was about to turn around the villain turned around. "Villain. Come back here." Izuku began to run quickly and noticed that the black-haired man had already taken care of most of the villains, so he approached him quickly and knocked out a villain with one blow, but hurt his hand. "Izuku. Mr. the leader, is he following me? Give me a few seconds, distract him." While he was fighting Izuku heard a car door being ripped off and thrown at him. He obviously ducked at that exact moment, but the door hit the hero in the back making him fall. "Izuku. Oh no, come on, get up." Izuku tried to help the hero, but the leader grabbed him by the hair and threw him against a pole. Izuku fell somewhat hurt, but the villain kicked him in the face, causing a cut on his mouth. Izuku wiped the little blood that came out and began to tremble. He noticed that part of the sidewalk was broken, and there was a large piece there, so he began to pull on it, but the villain hit him in the back of the head. Izuku kept trying, but the villain grabbed him by the neck and forced him to look at him. "Villain. You shouldn't have gotten involved." The villain was about to hit him again, but a rope or something similar stopped the attack and managed to make him release Izuku. The villain turned around and using much of his strength, pulled the rope attracting the wounded hero. He was about to hit him when Izuku managed to tear off the piece of stool and hit him in the back of the neck, destroying the broken piece in the process and knocking out the villain. The hero fell to the ground but got up and leaned on Izuku. "You did well, kid, not bad for someone so thin." "Izuku. Thanks, but I'm really sore. Help is on the way, the police will take care of the rest for now, rest." After about 2 minutes several police officers arrived as well as ambulances to treat Izuku and the hero's wounds, as well as the other hostages. The firefighters had arrived a minute earlier and had begun their work. "Paramedic. Well, your injuries aren't that serious. Just put some warm compresses on your face for the bruises and take these pills for the swelling." "Izuku. Thank you very much." Izuku stood up and took the box of pills in his hand to leave the scene. As he left the people applauded him and he looked down in embarrassment, but he had a big smile on his face. He was about to leave when he felt a hand touch his shoulder, so he looked up. "Izuku. Oh, it's you. Aizawa. The press wants to talk to you. By the way, I know I didn't introduce myself, I'm Shota Aizawa, Eraserhead." Izuku got excited and took out his notebook where there was a page with his hero name and a long description of his powers. "Izuku. I knew it was you, could you sign the sheet please?" Izuku bowed his head and felt how they held the notebook. "Aizawa. I don't do this very often, but well, you helped me, in fact it's strange that I work during the day." Aizawa asked a person who was passing by for a pen and signed the notebook. Izuku thanked him and was about to leave. "Aizawa. Aren't you going to talk to the reporters?" "I don't plan on staying to do it, you're just a nuisance." Izuku. "And no, I'd rather they didn't know, bye." Izuku ran from the scene to his house, and when he arrived he noticed that his mother was already there, so he proceeded to excitedly tell her what he had done. At first his mother was obviously worried, but then she was relieved to see him and noticed that he wasn't that hurt. A week passed and Izuku was on his computer checking the email that Issei had sent him, reading it out loud while his mother was next to him. "Izuku. And hereby, after reading all the services offered by the school, you are informed that you have successfully accredited to pass to UA High School. We will wait for you in 2 weeks at the indicated time. If you want to check it, please click the link at the end of the document." Hearing that, Izuku jumped for joy and hugged his mother tightly as she did him. They both had tears in their eyes, and to celebrate, Inko cooked Izuku's favorite meal. 2 weeks passed, and Izuku was arriving at UA when he saw Aizawa standing at the entrance with a sign on which his name was written. Izuku. Eraserhead. Aizawa. Here I am, Professor Aizawa. I didn't think you were going to be my student. Izuku. Oh well, I didn't know either, but why do you have a sign with my name? Aizawa. The director informed me that you were quirkless, so you will have special treatment, but don't think that because of that you should try less. On the contrary, I expect better results from you. Izuku. Why yes. Aizawa. Fine, I'll guide you to the teacher's room with your other advisor. Izuku. Another advisor? Aizawa. I told you would have special treatment. When you arrive I'll tell you what it is about with my partner. Upon arriving at the teacher's lounge, Izuku ran into several heroes who now work as teachers, most of them veterans in the trade, and noticed that one of them, more specifically Power Loader, approached him. Our L. So he's the boy. Aizawa. That's right, Izuku Midoriya, the special deal I told you about will be that you will belong to 2 classes, on the one hand to my class of heroes. Our L. And on the other hand to my class of support heroes. We are in charge of designing objects to make work easier for the heroes who go out every day to fight in the streets, although we also go out from time to time. We focus more on support. Aizawa. On Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays you will have classes with me. Our L. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays with me. Aizawa. Given this, you will have a different grading method that will be divided into 2, 50% with me and the other 50% with Power Loader. Our L. Well, today being Monday you have to go with Aizawa, but tomorrow you will have to introduce yourself to your other classmates in my class. Izuku. I understood. I can't believe it, I'm in 2 classes at the same time. This is going to be difficult, but I have to do my best. Aizawa. Well, now look for room 1, I will arrive in a few minutes. Izuku said goodbye to both heroes and began to look for the room that Aizawa suggested. When he arrived he entered and could see that there was a small argument. Izuku. I'll try not to attract attention. Izuku walked pretending not to see what was happening, but someone stopped him. Oh look, someone else arrived. Izuku. Damn. Hearing that, the entire class turned in the direction of the door where he was and a scream made him turn to the place where the argument was. Itsuki. Deku. Isaac. Kaken, we play together. Itsuki approached him and hit him on the shoulder. Itsuki. I've already told you not to call me that. Izuku. Sorry, it was excitement, I didn't think we'd play together. Itsuki. In fact, I thought you had failed the test. Izuku. Well, I was surprised too, but at least I achieved my goal. While they two were talking, a part of the class joined them, but they had to sit down since Aizawa arrived. Aizawa. Well, I will be your advisor teacher. First of all, Shota Aizawa calls me. Now that I have introduced myself, it is your turn to introduce yourselves, so we will start from left to right. While you are introducing yourselves you will come to the front here. Everyone did that, and Izuku was surprised to see that Todoroki was also in the same group. After several introductions, it was finally time for Izuku to introduce himself. Izuku. Well, I'm Izuku Midoriya, I'm 16 years old, I just turned recently and well, I like to read and write down everything I can about the quirks that I see day by day. I'm not someone very strong physically, but I want to give my best. Aizawa. Is that all? Izuku. Yes. Aizawa. Be honest with your classmates and with yourself, just because you're different doesn't mean you're less. Izuku. But he is interrupted. Aizawa. Pay attention, he's about to say something important, so if anyone laughs or starts making fun of him, I'll make sure they get expelled. Everyone. Good. Aizawa. I can see that fear in his eyes, he's afraid of being rejected for being quirkless. Izuku. Ah well, here's someone who knows, but he starts to breathe deeply. I'm quirkless. The entire classroom fell silent and Izuku began to get nervous at the look on his classmates' faces. Beads of sweat began to run down his forehead and his nervousness increased every second. Everything was so grim for him until someone raised their hand. Aizawa. Yes. Haminari. Well, I don't know if it's considered an offense. If it is, I apologize, but are you really quirkless? Izuku. Why yes, I don't have a quirk that defines me or an ability in which I can improve my combat. I'm just a person with no skills. The entire classroom fell silent again and Izuku went to sit down. He was in the middle of the classroom, but he felt a strange sensation, as if someone was watching him out of the corner of his eye. The introductions continued, but Izuku continued to feel the stares of his classmates. After a few minutes the class began, and Izuku decided to focus on this by answering questions and taking notes. After an hour Professor Aizawa closed his book and stood up. Aizawa. Okay, for now my class is over, your next teacher will arrive in a few moments. Aizawa left the classroom and everyone started talking to each other, but Izuku crossed his arms and leaned on them, not much happened, and he felt someone touch him on the shoulder so he looked up. Mina. Hey, well, I don't know how to say it, but do you want to come talk to us? Mina pointed to a group that had formed inside the class, but just at that moment another teacher walked in, surprising everyone. Everyone. Almight. Almight. That's right, that's me. I guess there's no need to introduce myself. Just to clarify, I understand that there's a quirkless boy here, right? Izuku raised his hand and Almight approached him. Almight. Well then, I expect great things from you, kid. Just because you're quirkless doesn't mean you can accomplish great things. Almight returned to the desk and class began. Everyone went out to the training field. Before that they went to the locker room to change and put on their sportswear. Almight. Well, for now we will make pairs to compete. Choose who you want to be with. Everyone quickly began to choose a team, and when Kitsuki was about to go with Izuku, he noticed that Todoroki was alone with her eyes closed, so he approached her. Izuku. Hey, well, since you helped me last time, do you want to team up with me? Todoroki. Mhhh, I don't see why not. Almight. The objective is the following: you will have to run 100 meters flat and pass the tube to your partner, who will have to run another 100 meters flat and reach the finish line. While there, he will take a small metal sphere and throw it to his partner, who is waiting for him at the other end where he gave him the tube. If the sphere falls or passes the line that is marked here just before the relay, he will be disqualified. By the way, you only have 12 seconds. Everyone. What? Almight. Stop each race. When it's time to throw the ball, you can take a moment to throw and catch it, and then run again. Everyone started to prepare and Izuku approached Todoroki. Izuku. What do you want to do, Todoroki-san? Todoroki. Whatever. Izuku. Oh, I see, it seems he doesn't trust me that much. Well then, if it's okay with you, I'll pass you the tube and you throw the sphere so I can run back. Todoroki. Okay. Almight. Okay, everyone, get into position. Training began, and despite having placed third in the test, Todoroki simply said goodbye to Izuku after finishing the test. He simply nodded and went to change. The rest of the day was quite calm, learning quite a few new things. The day ended and Izuku went home walking quietly with his backpack. He was reading on the subway while waiting for the station when one of the most famous heroes entered, more specifically the number 2 hero Endeavor, and all the people were amazed, although no one dared to ask him for an autograph or anything, since they knew he was very serious. He treated his fans well, but he was too serious and had an intimidating aura. He sat next to Izuku, and he began to sweat looking for the page of his book where he had written down many things about his quirk. When he found it, he lightly touched his shoulder and he turned around. Endeavor. What's wrong? Izuku. Well, I wanted to know if I could sign in this space. There was a blank space on the sheet around so many words. Endeavor took the notebook in his hands and put on reading glasses. Before taking out his pen and signing, he began to read everything it said. Endeavor. Did you write this? Izuku. Why yes, how embarrassed he read it all. Endeavor. Where did you get so much information? Izuku. Well, some things are more than anything theories or things that I think, and I reinforce them with information and articles that I see on the internet about you, as well as some interviews or recorded moments where you were fighting or helping people. Endeavor. So you are someone very observant. Izuku. Something like that. Endeavor took his pen out of his plaid shirt and signed in the corresponding space and closed the notebook, realizing the name he had given it. Endeavor. Amazing quirks number 1. Do you have more notebooks with more quirks? Izuku. Yes, at that time when it came time to fill it out I still had a lot of things to research. Currently I have 4. Endeavor. And do you carry them all with you? Izuku. Yes, you never know where you'll find a hero like now. Endeavor. Wow, I knew people who were enthusiastic about quirks. From what I see, it seems you want to be a scientist or something unenjoyed about it. Izuku. Not really, although it's a possibility due to my limitations. Endeavor. Limitations. Izuku. Oh, nothing important, just a few personal things. Izuku remained silent, but Endeavor looked at him seriously. Endeavor. Boy. Izuku. Ah, it's my stop, nice to meet you and thanks for the signature. Izuku stood up and bowed in front of him and left. Endeavor. Sure. Izuku arrived home and began to do some tasks that UA assigned him. It was mostly research on some historical moments and other not very complicated things. He spent part of the afternoon studying and the other part exercising, although his arms ended up a bit sore. Izuku. I haven't exercised in a week, I have to catch up. Night came and Izuku went to sleep, eagerly awaiting his next day at UA. The next day. Izuku was arriving at UA in his normal uniform and went to the support classroom. He entered and noticed that it was a large workshop, so he entered and looked for a place to sit, but quickly saw a paper with his name on a table in front of the teacher's desk, so he sat there. Minutes passed, and more students began to arrive until a teenager his age sat next to him. Her hair was pink, and she looked quite lively. She turned to look at him, and her eyes had a kind of look which Izuku found strange, but she didn't mention anything about it. "Will you be my partner?" Izuku. "Ah well, I think not the truth." Hatsum. "Well, let me introduce myself, I am Hatsume." Izuku. "Izuku Midoriya." Hatsum. "Well, Midoriya-kun, I hope you like experimenting and making amazing creations. Let me show you some of my babies." Izuku. "Babies?" Hatsum. "That's what I call my creations. It helps that the teacher hasn't arrived yet." Our L. "Actually, I'm already here." Our loader walked in and sat at his desk and saw Izuku Midoriya and indicated for him to stand next to him. Our L. "As you may notice, we have a new member in the class. He will only come on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I will explain why. Now introduce yourself, boy." Izuku. "Well, I'm Izuku Midoriya. I'm 16 years old. I just turned 16. I like to read and write things about quirks, and I'm also quirkless." At this, Hatsum quickly raised his hand. Our L. "Yes." Hatsum. "Quirkless is not the term for people who don't have a quirk." Our L. "That's right." Hatsum. "Great, it's the first quirkless friend I have." Izuku was surprised by Hatsum's answer, but at the same time it felt somewhat uncomfortable and strange, since most people stayed away from him when they found out he was quirkless. Our L. "I'm surprised by your positive attitude, but anyway, you can sit down now, Midoriya." Izuku went to sit down, and the teacher began to explain a base prototype that they were going to build between the entire class. There were several tracking devices that were placed on the wrist. These had to be water resistant, not burn at temperatures below 100 degrees Celsius, and they had to have a built-in mini solar panel so that their energy would not run out. Izuku's table was in charge of making the solar panel, as well as perfecting the tracking system. While they worked on it, Hatsum explained how to use the tools and how things should be programmed. They spent half the day doing that, but he met all the requirements, and they began to do the tests. Our L. "Okay, I'll take it to someone who's in charge of doing the tests, and tomorrow they'll give us the results. In the meantime, I ask you to clean your tables and start reading the advanced programming language book. I'll ask questions from page 25 to 39. Everyone started reading, but Izuku started to have endless doubts, so Hatsum began to help him in any way she could, because there was one thing or another that she didn't know either. Hatsum. "So that's why I couldn't program my resistance gloves." Izuku. "This is too advanced for me." Hatsum. "Don't get discouraged, you can learn over time. Once you get used to it, it will be easier." Izuku. "Really?" Hatsum. "Yes, but the problem is getting used to it while closing his eyes." Izuku. "Well, for some reason I have to give my best and not fall behind." Izuku began to read and analyze everything that was in the book. Izuku. "If I can read and analyze the quirks of others, I should be able to do this. Come on, I know I can." When Power Loader arrived, he began to ask questions, and Izuku managed to answer all of them correctly. Feeling more relieved, the day ended, and Izuku said goodbye to Hatsum to go home quietly, but he ran into Todoroki, who approached him. "Todoroki. Did you run into my father yesterday?" Izuku. "I don't know, I talked to Endeavor-san and got his signature. Look." He takes out his notebook and shows him the signature. Todoroki. "Yes, he's my dad." Izuku. "Really? It's incredible, your dad is a great person." Todoroki. "He told me that he had run into someone my age with green hair. When I told him that there was someone like that in my class, he asked me what you were like, and I told him that I was a quirkless. Was I wrong to tell him?" Izuku. "Not at all." Todoroki. "Well, then I can go back in peace. If I hadn't asked you, my dad would be lecturing me all afternoon. Goodbye, Midoriya." Izuku. "Why yes, Todoroki-san." Todoroki said goodbye to him calmly and went home while Izuku was on his way to his. Izuku. "I thought she didn't like me, but I see she's that cold with everyone. Ah, I can't believe it. My student life at UA has already begun. I must give everything I have for my future and to be a great hero," while raising his hand and continuing to walk. Almight secret. Izuku was in the UA bathroom doing his basic needs. When he left there, he ran into Katsuki, who when she saw him noticed that he was covered in grease on his uniform. Katsuki. "What happened to you?" Izuku. "Well, it was a problem. We were building a gasoline container for a project, but out of nowhere it exploded and stained a large part of the classroom. The good thing was that I was wearing a welding mask." Katsuki. "I see, well, take care and see you later, nerd." Katsuki hit him and went to his classroom. Izuku headed to the support class, but when he arrived he noticed smoke coming out of it, so he quickly entered. Izuku. "What's happening?" Upon entering he noticed that one of his classmates was burning, while another tried to put it out using his quirk of spitting water from his mouth. Izuku looked at the scene and simply entered and sat next to Mei as always. Hatsum. It's the third time this week. Izuku. I thought it was the fourth. L. Okay, young people, remember that we have to take this and present it in front of the 3 first grade classes. Izuku. Excuse me, but don't you think we should change the fuel machine for a better solar panel? L. I tried, but unfortunately the device needs the size. If you put a solar panel on it, it will be smaller and less efficient. Izuku. Okay, I understand. After a few arrangements that took a long time, the project was finished. Izuku along with Power Loader and 2 other students headed to room 1, which was the one I was also in. When they arrived, Izuku entered with a small box in his hands. All his friends greeted him, and he too with a smile. At that moment it was Aizawa who was teaching the class, so he stopped explaining and sat at his desk, waiting to see what they would do. L. Sorry for the interruption, but the principal asked us to show it to the other first grade classes. Aizawa. Don't worry. L. Alright, go ahead, kid. Izuku stood behind the box and started talking. Izuku. Well, as you can see, it's a small, fairly compact box. Its function is simple when it comes to detecting with the 360-degree camera inside or with its sound and vibration detector. An imminent danger, it will open and expand around the person in a radius of 2 square meters high and wide. It has an air filter in case of fire. If it is detected that it is a flood, instead of leaving the filter, it will become lighter, dropping some parts to reach the surface and be able to open so that the person inside can breathe. Student. In addition, it can withstand incredibly high pressure, just as it resists fire without any problem, as well as electricity and other things. Izuku. For now it's a prototype, but we plan to improve it and put it up for sale, since unfortunately doing something like this is neither cheap nor easy, although it is hoped that it will save many lives. Student 2. It has a built-in GPS tracker that shows your current location on a holographic screen and sends those alerts to the police and heroes so they come to your rescue. In addition to describing the danger situation you are in, records a 5-second audio and takes panoramic photos around it. Everyone listened attentively until someone raised their hand. Pitsuki. Yes, Kaken. Pitsuki. Don't tell me that idiot, they said it had a camera, but when it opens it should be with you, right? Izuku. No, thanks to the quirk of my partner here present, we were able to mold the camera so that when it opens it adheres to the walls and disappears, leaving everything visible. It's a kind of nanotechnology, although it is very difficult to make and not cheap at all. Student. Yes, it takes us altogether a week just doing this. The teacher helped us, but do you think that with these plans they can send it to a company with a bigger budget and such so that it can be better prepared? Izuku. Now I would like someone to come and attack me so they can verify its use. L. Say a list number. Aizawa. Ashido, you pass. Mina. I'm not a list number. Aizawa. I haven't learned them. Mina stepped forward and a kind of acid came out of her hands directly towards Izuku. He didn't move, and the box, upon detecting the attempted attack, opened, protecting Izuku inside the aforementioned cube. Student 2. Oh, we forgot, if the camera detects that the space is small, it will stop so as not to damage its surroundings. As in this chaos, when it touched a wall, it stopped despite not having reached 2 square meters. If you wish, from inside, you can authorize its expansion so that it moves everything around it. Its maximum load is 150 kilos. All the students applauded, and after a few seconds Izuku deactivated the device inside, picked it up and gave a small bow along with his other 2 classmates, and they left to give the same explanation in the other classrooms. The day ended and Izuku was on his way home as usual, but deviated from the path when he noticed that Almight was present. Despite being his teacher, it did not take away his desire to talk to him, and unfortunately he had not had time to ask for an autograph, so he approached him, although to his misfortune Almight skipped away before he could talk to him. Izuku left somewhat discouraged. He arrived at the subway and entered it. He got off a few stops before the one he should have to walk a little, and began to write about the quirks he saw day by day. Right now he was concentrating on those of his hero class. He was so focused that he did not realize where he was getting into, and when he looked up he was in some kind of fraction. Izuku quickly left and saw in the distance Almight on top of a building. A smile formed on his face and he ran. He went up the building, and when he reached the rooftop where Almight was he found him eating. He quickly approached him, but before he got there a kind of smoke clouded his vision. Izuku. Cough cough, excuse me Almight. Almight. Did someone follow me? Izuku. I'm Izuku Midoriya, a UA student from class 1A. Almight. Oh, of course I remember you kid, but this isn't a good time to talk. Izuku. Well, I just wanted to ask for an autograph and wait, you're not Almight. In front of him was a fairly thin adult with eye sockets with a blue glow coming out of them, a long face, messy blonde hair, and a t-shirt that was a bit big on him. Almight. Damn, you see kid, it's me, Almight. Izuku. How funny, for a moment I thought it was because of his voice, but it's just similar, am I in the wrong building? Almight. Seriously it's me, I can prove it look. Almight stood firm with his back to him, waited a few seconds and turned around to say. Almight. Calm down, everything is fine, do you know why? Because I'm here. Before finishing, a jet of blood came out of his mouth and Izuku was alarmed to see that. Almight simply wiped his mouth and finished his sentence as if nothing had happened. Almight. You see. Izuku. You're sick sir, you must go to a hospital. Almight. Ah, thanks for your concerns kid, but I'm fine, I just have to rest, completely ignoring what I told him about me being Almight. Izuku. If you want I can accompany you to the hospital or to your house. Almight. I'm not okay, seriously kid. Izuku was about to retreat when in the distance he saw a chase heading towards his location. At first he opened his backpack and took out a black triangular shaped device. He was about to throw it into the street, but Almight stopped him. Almight. Leave it to my boy. Almight jumped and Izuku was worried, but when he fell it was Almight, he stood in front of the vehicle and stopped it with one hand. Izuku was fascinated, and all the people around him focused on giving him applause and so on. Almight graciously accepted all the gestures of the people and retired, leaving the rest to the police. He went up the stairs of the building, and when he reached the top, his muscular form disappeared. Almight. I haven't rested well lately, I should rest more. Izuku ran towards him and took his hands, he got on his knees and bowed his head. Izuku. I'm so sorry for doubting you Almight. Almight. Oh okay, get up kid, no need to bow. Almight helped Izuku up and he took out his notebook and asked him to sign. Almight gladly did so, and when he finished he looked seriously at Izuku. Almight. Well, now that you've seen this I must ask you to keep it a secret. Izuku. But what happened? Almight. It was a long time ago, probably about 15 or 16 years. Flashback. Almight was on his way to a house. The reason for this was because he had recently seen a tall, black-haired man enter, mostly seen in a formal suit. His face had been drawn by an adult for the police and matched that of one of the most wanted criminals. Almight was going with the idea of finding some kind of secret operations base or human trafficking. Some kind of those things, but when he arrived next to the police stealthily and other heroes, he found the one who was his rival par excellence, carrying a green-haired baby affectionately. He looked at him with such a delicate and happy smile. The baby was asleep in his arms, and the villain saw a woman with green hair like the baby cooking something. He was so calm, but despite that Almight gave the order to continue with the mission. Endeavor kicked the main door, destroying it. Almight entered at that moment and approached to stop All for One, but he held his hand, while with the other he carried the baby and gave him a powerful kick. Almighty left the house, destroying the wall where the door was, and a battle broke out. All for One had left the kilo on the table and had started fighting in front of his house, destroying everything in his path. After approximately 1 hour of hard fighting, All for One was ready to defeat Almight and Endeavor. Both heroes quite injured like him while the authorities restricted the area. All for One charged an attack, but at that moment the green-haired woman stood in front of him with the baby. Afo. What are you doing Inko? Inko. Stop please, she's crying, can't you see? You promised me that you wouldn't hurt anyone else, and now you're causing all the chaos around you. You promised for both of us. Afo. They're trying to take me away from you. I would do anything to be by your side. Inko. I don't want you to do anything. I knew who you are and I still accepted you because I know that despite everything you did in the past you could change. That there was still a spark of kindness inside you, and I knew it by seeing how you cared for our son, how you looked at him. Afo. I know that, he's my son, there's nothing I wouldn't do for you or for him. Inko. Then I'll give up for both of you. All for One looked at his wife and son with a melancholy look and stopped floating in the air. He approached them and with one hand he touched his son's face and then touched his wife's. Afo. Do you want me to do that? Inko. Please, maybe only then can you give him a peaceful future. I want you to change and become a good man, and that someday, no matter how much time passes, you can get out. I'll be waiting for you here. Inko grabbed her husband's hand and he hugged them. All Might lowered his guard, but Endeavor noticed that one of All for One's henchmen had arrived on the scene and was about to hurt the woman, so a burst of fire came out of his hand at the henchman. All for One misinterpreted this and charged a super powerful attack that not only killed the henchman who was in the middle of both attacks, but was deflected by Endeavor's burst of fire and went towards All Might, hitting his rib. After that he felt great pain and blood began to come out of his mouth, but Ace still resisted and locked All for One up while his family was in his house. Present. Izuku listened to the story, but All Might omitted the details of the name of the woman and the villain, although Izuku knew that since his mother told him as a child, she never hid it from him. In a very serious talk for his age, she told him who your father was, what he was like in the past, and how he had changed when he met her, and when they had their only son. Izuku. So my father did that to you? Almight. Yes, in a few words, don't feel bad kid, he's good at paying off his debt now. Izuku. And will he ever get out? I mean, mom has a picture of him and prays that one day he can get out and be a good person. Almight. Well, maybe, but it will be complicated, he would have to be watched 24 hours a day, but it's not impossible. All Might and Izuku got off the building, they continued walking, and something that surprised Izuku was that he didn't have a kind of resentment towards his father for being who he was. When they got near Izuku's house, All Might said goodbye to him and went to his own. Izuku entered and was surprised to see that Kitsuki was there. Izuku. What are you doing here, Kaken? Kitsuki. Well, I needed your help with something, it's some things at school that I don't understand, but your mother said you would arrive earlier. Inko. Why did you take so long? Izuku. It's that I strayed from the path, but it's no problem. What do you want me to help you with? Izuku sat next to Kitsuki and they spent the rest of the afternoon talking and resolving their doubts. When night came, Kitsuki formally said goodbye to Inko and Izuku lightly punched him on the shoulder and left. Izuku closed the door and Inko prepared dinner. Inko. It's been a while since I last came here. I thought you two had a fight. Izuku. Well, things are harder now. Besides, I didn't come here that often anyway. Inko. So, tell me, do you have a girlfriend or someone you like? Izuku. Not everything is normal and peaceful, why? Inko. Well, Kitsuki is a good woman. She has a somewhat strong character, just like her mother, but she likes her a lot and, as always, they talk. Izuku. We're not just friends, I don't think she'll end up dating someone like me, she has a great quirk. Inko. You may not have a quirk, but you have a great brain and a big heart, don't forget it, there may be thousands of men with a better physique than yours, but that's not enough to conquer a woman, you must be attentive to detail and understand her, which is difficult, I know. Izuku. Somewhat. Inko. But what you notice most is how she is and what she's done for you, although it's not just about giving, and there must also be a mutual interest. Izuku. And when you met Dad, how was it? Inko. Well, it was a bit complicated. I remember that I was on my way home, it was a small apartment and I had just become independent, so I was carrying some bags of food. He approached and gently, at first he said that he had planned to kidnap me. Izuku didn't say anything, but his mother noticed a look of surprise on his face. Inko. I know at that time I was on the wrong path, but he took me home and we continued talking for a while, I really liked him, he left and every day that I went shopping he was there to help me, with a smile. After a while he knocked on my door one morning and asked me out and I accepted, it was a good date, the best I had ever had to be the first with that man, he told me everything he did and promised to change. At first I stayed away from him and he started changing my routes, but he started leaving notes every day under my door. Izuku listened attentively while he ate and his mother was sitting next to him. Inko. After about 4 months I finally decided to see him again and his gesture made me realize how much I had changed in such a short time. He hugged me, carried me in his arms, he was happy that I spoke to him again. I apologized for being somewhat cold with him, but he understood that he was a bad person, but that he would change for me, and during the time that we were boyfriends and husbands, that was how it was. He stopped doing bad things, but he always wore a mask when we were in public because he didn't want to keep him away from me, and even more so when you were born, he was so happy. I remember that day was the first time I saw him cry with joy. Izuku. But my birth didn't cause problems. Inko. No, he found a way to change the roles so that they wouldn't discover him. At first I was angry, but it was something very minimal, so I let it go. Every day he was grateful to me for letting him have a normal life and giving him a family to trust in. Izuku. And the day he left. Inko. It was very difficult and it still is, but it was the best for everyone. There will be a time when he goes out and can be calm on the streets and no matter what other people say, they don't know his human side. Izuku smiled and finished dinner while his mother told him more anecdotes that she had had with his father. After finishing they both went to sleep. The next day. Izuku woke up and got ready to go to UA, being halfway there he ran into Almight who spoke to him. Almight. I want to propose a training. Izuku. A training. Almight. So you want to be a hero who saves people with a smile, jump into action, but unfortunately you need to improve many things and being a quirkless it is more difficult. In UA they will be able to train you, but I want to do my part. Izuku. Wow, I thank you very much, I seriously did not think I would ever receive personal training from you. Almight. But this is a secret between you and me, after the exit come to the mall downtown I will be waiting for you. They both arrived at UA, and Izuku went to hero class. He was talking quietly with Kaminari and Kirishima when suddenly Kitsuki arrived and pulled Izuku by the neck. The other two boys just sighed and continued talking as if nothing had happened. Izuku. Is something wrong, Kaken? Kitsuki. Don't tell me like that, I just want to let you know that I'll also go to your house today so you don't take long. Izuku. I'll try. Kitsuki. I hope so, you can go now. Kitsuki released Izuku, and he just breathed a sigh of relief to return to the other two. Classes were quite calm, and upon leaving UA Izuku went straight to the mall, where he could find All Might at the main entrance waiting for him. Izuku approached him quickly, and All Might guided him to a quieter area. Izuku was in an abandoned somewhat old house. All Might asked him to come in, and they went to the basement, where there were several things like magazines from 10 years ago, glass bottles, wooden chairs with insects and so on. Izuku. Whose house was this? All Might. It's mine, I bought it for when I wanted to get away from the city a bit since it's close to the countryside. For now help me clean the basement, I'll take care of the rest, later I'll ask other people to do the basics, have services like electricity, water and so on, but for today help me. Izuku and All Might started cleaning the basement, and after about 3 hours it was clean. Izuku sat on the floor, but All Might lifted him up. All Might. There are still bugs and other things, so I hired someone to come. It won't take long, but you can go now, just memorize the house and the location here you will come to train, and I will watch you. Izuku. Okay, thanks All Might. Izuku said goodbye and ran to the nearest subway station. After about 30 minutes he arrived home with his uniform all dusty and some scratches on his hands from carrying all the old and damaged objects. Upon entering he could see Kitsuki with a fake smile and Inko. Inko? But what happened to you, son? Izuku. All Might said it was a secret I fought with someone. Hearing that they were both surprised and Inko checked the scratches on her arms. Izuku. It was a woman, she started saying some things to me and began to scratch me, but I tried to stop her and she scratched my arms. From there nothing else happened. Her boyfriend, or I guess it was, stopped her and apologized to me. Inko. Ah son, come, I'll put something on you to take it off. Izuku. Oh okay, I have to study with Kitsuki. Kitsuki. Okay, I can wait. I thought they had stopped telling each other things a long time ago, but well, you can't convince everyone. Izuku. Seriously, I'm fine alone, he is interrupted. Inko. Kitsuki. Come go. Both said it with a serious look and tone, so Izuku only had a small shiver and followed his mother. After about 2 or 3 minutes Izuku came back and sat next to Kitsuki in more comfortable clothes and began to study with her. Izuku. By the way, does your mother know you're coming? Kitsuki. Yes, I told her yesterday. Ah, the old lady sends you her regards. Izuku. Oh, well, also, say hello to her from me. They both continued studying, but there came a point where Kitsuki got bored and didn't pay much attention to Izuku. She began to secretly watch TV, but Izuku discovered her. Izuku. Kaken, can you hear me? Kitsuki. Yes, you continue. Izuku. What am I talking about? Kitsuki. Something about math. Izuku. I finished that like 5 minutes ago, am I boring you? Kitsuki. Partially, but more studying. Now that I think about it, we have already studied a lot and we have hardly trained, so now it is my turn to teach you. Kitsuki took Izuku by the hand and took him out of his house. They went to the nearest park, where Kitsuki began to train him, just as she exercises a little. After about 40 minutes they both began a fighting practice, in which Kitsuki could not use his quirk to have things more fair. Izuku was still somewhat shy when it came to fighting, and when he saw a fist going straight to his face, he ducked and covered his head. Kitsuki. What are you doing? Izuku. He protected me. Kitsuki just looked at him with a grimace on his face, and Izuku got up. Izuku. Sorry, I'm still a bit of a coward when it comes to fighting. I think it's more of a reflex action that I've gotten used to using over time. Kitsuki understood what he meant and automatically remembered the time when he saw how he was hit and he would get in that position, crouch down and cover his head while other children hit him. Kitsuki looked at Izuku from afar as he was wiping his face with water and at the same time sighed with some sadness. Kitsuki. It's going to be difficult. Kitsuki looked back at Izuku and how he began to pet a dog that approached him and smiled. Kitsuki. Ah, if he is giving his effort to help me understand, I must also make an effort. Hey nerd, come quickly, I still have to teach you many things. Kitsuki stretched his arm and they both continued with their training. Intensive training and USJ. Izuku was writing notes on the blackboard in the hero class. Everything was quiet and everyone was paying attention to what the teacher was about to say. Izuku crossed his arms a little and began to look at his notebook. Lately he felt like his head was hurting more and he had to take off his glasses to rest for a few seconds. Izuku. I hope I don't need more magnification. Izuku lightly patted his face as his teacher explained how to treat a person having a heart attack. Izuku put his glasses back on without any problems and continued paying attention to the class. After finishing the explanation, the teacher sent for some mannequins with a machine inside with which everyone would practice first aid. Izuku was one of the first, and despite taking a little while he managed to get the due result and returned to his seat to wait. While he waited, he looked out the window at the entire UA campus, and since there were other classes training, he gave a small sigh when he saw all the incredible abilities of his other first-grade classmates, but instead of getting sad, he began to write quickly in his notebook. The day passed without any further problems, and Izuku left in the direction of the house that Almight was fixing. When he arrived, he saw that Almight was sitting outside the house with a drink in his right hand. Izuku. Sorry for the delay, but I'm ready for training. Almight. Perfect, first of all we'll run from here to the nearest beach, it'll serve as a warm-up. They both got ready. Izuku changed into his UA gym clothes while All Might waited for him. As they jogged out, they spent about 25 minutes until they arrived. They rested a bit there and Izuku drank water to hydrate himself. They returned to the house and there the training began. First of all Might used his muscular form and sat on Izuku's back and he began to do push-ups. All Might. You have to do 10 repetitions of 5 each. At first Izuku reached the ground and couldn't get up, so he felt tired, but after several attempts he began to understand and it became a little easier, too little for his liking. After finishing, All Might took a machine out of the basement which gave small shocks. All Might. Do you see the tubes at the entrance? Izuku. Yes. All Might. Hang upside down and get up until you touch the tips of your toes, and when you come down I'll give you a shock to the chest. It will also be 10 repetitions of 5 each. Izuku gulped but didn't say anything and started training. After about 15 minutes Izuku felt tired and with some cramps in his foot, he got up and noticed how All Might took out some weights. They didn't look that big, so Izuku got under them and carried them without much difficulty. Izuku. I can do it. All Might. Perfect, now go and walk around the house a few times. Every time you take a step you will bend the knee of the foot you moved forward with to the ground, and by the way, place the weight on your shoulders. Several more exercises followed like this for 1 hour, and in the end Izuku ended up exhausted. All Might. You did well for your first time, you can rest. Izuku. Thank you very much. Izuku was breathing shallowly from tiredness and All Might decided to bring him a glass of water. When he arrived he noticed he was sitting in a chair and gave it to him. All Might. Had you ever trained before? Izuku. Yes, with Kaken, but nothing like this. This is much more difficult. All Might. No wonder you can adapt. Well, when you feel better go home and do your homework or rest. Tomorrow come after school anyway, and like this every day except Saturdays and Sundays. Izuku. Okay. Izuku waited a few minutes before leaving for his house. On his way, Kodo noticed Katsuki was at the supermarket and decided to stop by to say hello. When he arrived, she saw him all sticky and tired from all his training. Katsuki. Where were you? Izuku. Well, I decided to start training to get stronger. Since I don't have a quirk, I have to develop my other abilities to the fullest. Katsuki. I see. So you just came to say hello, nerd. Izuku. Yes, but if you want, I can help you. Katsuki. I'm fine. You should go home and take a shower. Izuku. I know, well, it was a pleasure to greet you. I'll see you the day after tomorrow. Izuku ran out of the supermarket and walked home. When he arrived, he took a shower and started doing his homework. He finished a little late, but when he finished, he looked at his phone and noticed that there had been a lot of news about robberies lately. He sighed a little tired and decided to lie down on his bed instead of in the living room. Little by little, his eyes closed until he fell completely asleep. The days passed and Izuku continued training under the careful supervision of All Might. Time passed, more specifically about 2 months, and Izuku began to notice somewhat drastic changes in his body. His clothes began to fit tight, specifically the shoulders, and even one of his favorite shirts ripped when he used a little force to get it in, and it could not hold. Not only in the upper part of the body had he managed to gain more muscles, which he had noticed. But now the pants he wore were not so big and some even squeezed his waist and he grew about 7 or 8 centimeters more. At this he worried a little because he thought it was too advanced growth, but All Might told him not to worry. Given the due changes, Izuku had to go buy new clothes, plus All Might decided to train him to fight and take away that fear, which was not entirely possible, but there was a great advance. Now when someone wanted to hit him or block the blow or dodged it. After a friendly duel in which All Might held back, he was obviously happy to see the boy improve. Right now Izuku was in a kind of dome far from UA. This was because his support class had been tasked with programming the dome for various things. Since the heroes would have an important test there, it was the only thing he knew, but he was with Power Loader, verifying that the electricity flowed perfectly. In addition to programming several machines to resemble natural disasters quite dangerous for Izuku's liking, the day ended and Izuku was waiting for Professor Powerloader as he was locking everything up. Izuku was reading a book, but a breeze of air made him raise his face, and for a moment he swore he had seen someone jumping from tree to tree. Izuku tried to see, but being night and not seeing much, plus his eyesight was failing him, when it came to seeing far away he couldn't verify. When Powerloader arrived he noticed that he saw something and decided to approach him to ask. "L. Is something wrong, kid?" "Izuku. I thought I saw someone pass between the trees, or rather above them." "L. Don't worry if someone or something came in, there is an automatic security protocol, plus there are guards here, so it must have been a work of your imagination." "Izuku. Yes, it must be that." "L. Better concentrate on tomorrow, you may have scheduled some of that, but you should make an effort. You will also go with your other companions." "Izuku. Yes, and I'm eager to try something I made with Mei-san." "L. And may I know what it is?" "Izuku. Well, remember the design of my suit? To the boots I added a layer of fairly resistant iron that we got from the materials we had left over, in addition to incorporating an air filter to the mask, although I hardly use it because in the training we have had they have always broken it, the lower glass part remains intact, so I decided to make that small modification." "L. That's good, if you want I could design something to make you more resistant." "Izuku. That would be a great help." They both left that place calmly talking about some modifications they could make to Izuku's suit, it is the same as the one in the anime. The next day. The students got on a private UA bus. The reason for this is that they would be taken to the USJ facilities, a kind of modified dome to simulate high-level natural disasters and see how the students performed in various situations, be it a fire or a tornado, even in a mountainous place, or in the middle of ice and winter. Of course Izuku was forbidden to give information to his classmates, but it wasn't like he knew much the truth. They sat in groups of 2, and Izuku sat next to Todoroki, since in these last 2 months, he tried to get her to open up more with him and the rest of the group, although it wasn't a big change. Now she didn't completely ignore them, and at least stayed to listen to what they were talking about. Although the one she got along best with was Izuku, since whenever he arrived, he would stop to greet all his classmates equally, and from time to time he would try to talk to her, although he was the only one who contributed something to the conversation. "Izuku. This Todoroki-san, isn't there something you want to talk about?" At this the bicolor looked at him strangely, since he was the one who always contributed to the conversation, and during those months he had never run out of topics to talk about. Izuku waited to hear her answer until she spoke. "Todoroki. Well, I'm not someone very interesting, I'm a normal person." "Izuku. Well, but you must have some routine, go for a run or read, you must have hobbies, something, right?" Todoroki began to think and realized that despite her never having talked much, the green-haired boy ended up gaining confidence with her because he talked and talked about his hobbies, part of his routine, and even showed her some of the books he wrote about the quirks he saw and analyzed. On the one hand it seemed unfair to him that he was the only one to share, so he decided to investigate inside his head to start talking. "Todoroki. Well, in the mornings I make breakfast with my sister, sometimes my sister, mother and I take turns. After breakfast my brothers and father are in charge of cleaning the dishes while we get ready. I leave early, and on the way here I usually stay quiet with my hands in my backpack, waiting to arrive. When I get here it's usual. I leave and return to my house to change clothes and go train at the company where my father works, since they have a gym, and you can practice a fight if you want against someone else. I train for about 2 or 3 hours maximum and return home, do my homework, and I like to be in my room tidying up." He stops. When she finished abruptly, Izuku asked her why she stopped, but she said to leave him there and talk about something else. Izuku preferred not to interfere anymore and decided to talk about something else. After a few minutes of Izuku talking mostly, the bus stopped. Everyone thought they had arrived, but Aizawa got off and told them to wait inside. 5 minutes passed and nothing. Izuku looked out the window while Todoroki waited patiently. After a few minutes he returned and the road continued without further problems. Upon arriving Izuku looked at the dome, and it looked bigger than the day before, maybe due to the modifications. Everyone got off the bus and formed into 2 rows, men and women. Aizawa. Well, since the majority of the group are men, they will do the following. They will divide into groups of 5 members. Preferably you women do not get together and go with a team. Of course, despite the teams being formed, it does not mean that you can help your teammates and that you should always be together. It is only a measure to accommodate them. In addition, these radios will be given to you that only those on the same team will be able to listen to. So if you separate, there may be a possibility that you find another member of a different team and you can be united. The next thing will not be explained by me, but by Master 13. The person arrived in a fairly large white suit, it looked like some kind of astronaut suit, and politely greeted everyone. 13. As you know, I am the Hero 13. Well, the simulation that you are about to test is about natural disasters. Being 5 teams, we will deploy them in various areas, and they will have to rescue ordinary people. Well, that's how they act, but they already know all the security measures in case something goes wrong. There are from children to the elderly, so come with me. 13 guided the students through the dome and left each team in a respective area with their radios. When he left, he went to a cabin where everything was monitored and pressed a button that started the simulation. Suddenly a small tremor shook the place and natural disasters appeared. Izuku's team was made up of Iida, Tokoyami, Kitsuki, Shiro and him. They all ran quickly to the snowy area, and before arriving they saw some boxes. When trying to open them, they were asked for their UA student ID, a small card that gave access to the classrooms and other things in the academy. They all scanned their card and special suits came out of these and put them on over their clothes. They began to climb the small mountain that had small ant slides. They were about to reach the top when they saw that in a small cave there were several children. Izuku climbed up there, but seconds before arriving a strong blizzard caused one of the children to fall. Izuku dropped a few meters and managed to catch the child with one of his hands. He laughed and Izuku just sighed in relief. He placed him on his shoulders and continued climbing. By then Iida had already reached the cave and had held 2 children. Iida, we'll need more help. Izuku, I have a plan, just help me climb. Iida stretched out his hand and lifted the boy first and then helped Izuku. Iida, and what's the plan? Izuku took a kind of canvas out of a backpack, held it by its 2 corners, and buried it with 2 rocks. He kicked it to make it come out, and it began to unfold quickly. After a few seconds it was heard that it hit something. Izuku, well, we'll have to climb again. First we'll leave them and then we'll come back. Iida, this will take longer, we still have time, go with the others, I'll take care of it. Izuku, are you sure, Iida-kun? Iida, don't worry, if you want, take my ice pick so you can climb faster. Iida handed him the ice pick and Izuku began to quickly climb the mountain. After a few minutes he managed to climb to the top and met the rest of his team. Izuku, what's wrong? Kitsuki, there are several people up there, but there is a large wall of ice. We were thinking of propelling Tokoyami so he could destroy it with his quirk. Izuku, why not? Tokoyami, they say there is someone stuck in the ice wall and if we destroy it, we will hurt him. Shiro, any ideas? Izuku, give me a few seconds. Izuku began to think when suddenly a person appeared. He was dressed normally and had his arms crossed, shivering from the cold. Izuku quickly approached and took a jacket out of his backpack to give it to him. The man grabbed it, but instead of putting it on, he covered Izuku's face with it and hit him 2 times with his knee in the stomach. Then he threw him down the hill, and upon hearing the struggle everyone turned around. Kitsuki quickly ran towards the villain, while Shiro and Tokoyami went to the place where Izuku was thrown. They looked out and found him hanging from an ice pick. Shiro, hold on. Kitsuki, I didn't know there were villains in the simulation. Villain? What simulation? The villain kicked Kitsuki in the stomach and he put his arm in his face and an explosion left him unconscious. Kitsuki heard an explosion in the distance and turned to see, noticing that there was smoke. An alarm quickly sounded and all the gates closed. Kitsuki went with the rest of his team, but a black spot appeared and pushed all the young people who were at the top. Izuku, seeing how his companions fell, tried to hold him, but Tokoyami used dark shadow to hold on to some rocks. On the other hand, Kitsuki had managed to hold on to the edge and was getting back up. Many villains began to come out of the spot and the voice of Professor Aizawa was heard. Aizawa, the villains have infiltrated the facility. Students have authorization to attack, but the most important thing is your health, so if necessary hide. The place became chaos. Izuku managed to get on and saw how they were carrying Kitsuki, who was struggling and causing explosions. He took some cables out of his backpack and ran towards one of the villains. He caught him by the arm and pressed a button to then release the cables. A discharge left one of them unconscious. The rest turned to see Izuku and Kitsuki rushed and freed himself from the grip. He punched one of them in the face, followed by an explosion that made him fall down the hill. Izuku, on the other hand, took a deep breath and remembered what Almight had told him. He prepared himself and when he saw that a fist was going straight to his face, he held it with both hands and with his right leg he kicked the villain's knee. Without wasting a second, he proceeded to release the villain's fist and hit him in the neck. He began to breathe heavily because he was short of breath and Izuku finished him off with a blow to the face that made him bleed. On the other hand, a villain was about to attack Kitsuki from behind. Izuku ran to her, but a shadow snatched him and hit the villain. Izuku turned around and noticed that Tokoyami and Shiro had returned. Izuku, we have to get down from there with them. Kitsuki, step aside, idiots, I'm going to destroy the wall. Izuku, wait. Itsuki put a hand on the ice, and an explosion created a large cloud of smoke. Izuku covered his mouth with one hand while with the other he began to spread the smoke. He noticed that all the people knew he had left. Zero tied a ribbon around his body to a fairly heavy rock and began to descend quickly. People began to go down after him. In the end only Izuku remained, and he began to descend slowly. When he reached the ground, Zero quickly, along with Tokoyami, guided the people to a safe place. Meanwhile Izuku and Kitsuki ran to the fire where at times ice walls could be seen that were quickly destroyed. While they were running, they both noticed that Momo's team needed help, so Kitsuki separated from him. Izuku continued running, and when he arrived, he could see a 1.90 meters man who was destroying the ice walls with blows. Although it took a while, others helped him. Izuku quickly thought and took a breath, covered his mouth for a second, and took a black cylinder. Ran and stuck it to the man's back, and he turned around angry. The others quickly ran towards Izuku, but the cylinder exploded, and a somewhat chewy viscous substance quite resistant and not easy to remove trapped most of them. The man made his efforts to free himself, while Izuku hit and defeated the rest. After a few seconds Todoroki came out to help to defeat them, making a great duo. Then between the two they knocked out the man. Izuku? And the rest of your team? Todoroki. They went to protect the people, well I bought them time. Izuku. I see, I will continue going to the other areas to help. Todoroki. It will be faster to slide. Todoroki placed himself in front of Izuku and began to create an ice path. Izuku held her shoulder and they began to move to the next area. USJ, Part 2. Izuku and Todoroki were moving through USJ when in front of them a black and purple blur was created. Todoroki quickly surrounds it, only to see many more of these. Izuku noticed that behind them there were more, so he took Todoroki's hand and jumped into the void. Todoroki quickly fell with him, avoiding an attack that destroyed the ice on which they slid. Being close to falling, Izuku was caught by some claws and Todoroki fell into the water. He closed one of his eyes and aimed at the wings of a half-bird man or something similar, and a blast of ice froze his wing. Izuku freed himself and hit him in the face. Before falling, knocking him out, Izuku fell into the water, and being submerged, he could see that there were several villains with diving equipment lurking from below. Izuku quickly swam with Todoroki and asked him to start freezing the lake. Todoroki listened to him and quickly began to freeze it, but a man broke the ice and fell in front of them. Izuku hit him, but he didn't flinch and grabbed his wrist. Todoroki approached him, but seeing a fist approaching, he created a wall of ice that stopped the attack. Izuku took a deep breath and grabbed a finger of the man, and then bent it. He let go, but hit him in the stomach that knocked him to the ground. Izuku got up as fast as he could and was alarmed to see more men arriving. He approached Todoroki, but his face turned somewhat pale when he saw Kitsuki fall from the sky, shouting "Shine." Izuku tried to stop her but failed. Izuku? Wait, you'll make us all explode. Kitsuki ignored his friend's words, and an explosion destroyed all the ice and sent everyone flying through the air. Izuku fell into a kind of lake house in pain. He looked up and noticed that there were some villains in the trees, but he looked for his two friends. He found Kitsuki in pain in a room, so he carried her, and outside he found Todoroki fighting with the man from before. She was having a hard time, so Izuku approached and remembered All Might's words one day when they were training. Flashback. Izuku was somewhat sad since he was still having problems regarding his way of fighting. All Might noticed it and put a hand on his shoulder and then sat next to him. All Might. I know you're afraid and it's normal, even I feel it, we all feel it, and you don't have to worry and feel bad about yourself. It's natural to be afraid, it means that we worry about our future. Izuku. But if I want to be a hero I must lose my fear. All Might. It's not about losing it, but about controlling it. Fear will never go away, it is something we cannot say goodbye to, it is a feeling, no matter how hard we try to push it away, there will be a moment when we will be afraid, happy, sad, anguish, but being a hero, you must control it and motivate yourself. What motivated you to be a hero? Izuku. You, seeing you there saving people with a smile and seeing that they are happy to see you. All Might. They are not only happy because it's me, they are happy because someone is helping them, and that someone could be you or another partner, but the reason for their joy is seeing that there are still good people in this world who are willing to go through the worst pain without losing their smile at all times, and helping them is their priority. Izuku opened his eyes in surprise at All Might's words and turned to look at him. He was looking at the horizon as he continued speaking. All Might. So when you're afraid, just think, the person you're going to save or have saved is going to be so happy that you're going to make a difference in their life. You're going to give them the message I'm giving you, not just with words but with actions. So always remember that when you're fighting. You may be afraid, and that's okay, but by controlling it, we can be strong and save people with a smile. Present. Izuku put aside his fear and ran towards the man. He heard the footsteps and turned in the direction Izuku was running towards, only to receive a blow to the face that made his nose bleed. The man fell to the ground but supported himself with one hand, while with the other he covered his nose. He turned to see Izuku and tried to hit him with his free hand, but Izuku dodged the attack and gave him 2 more blows to the face to finish with a blow to the chin from below that knocked him out. Todoroki looked at him in surprise, while Izuku trembled a little from the adrenaline. He looked at her, and she thanked him for the help. Izuku returned to Katsuki, only to see that she was stepping on the face of some villains who were unconscious. Izuku. I think I worried too much. Katsuki. Come on nerd, there is still work to do. Katsuki took Izuku by the hand and began to walk, dragging him a little. Katsuki. And don't stay behind, bi-color girl. Todoroki looked at her and then walked behind them. They continued on their way, running into more villains and being surprised by Izuku's ability. The latter was even surprised at himself, as were the 2 companions and more in his last fight. The poor villain had not managed to land a single blow since Izuku dodged them and responded with blows to the abdomen and things and finished with 3 blows with the same fist to the face. Katsuki. You really learned to fight nerd. If you had fought like that before, no one would have messed with you. Izuku. Well, I also learned from those experiences. Todoroki. Pretty good for someone without a quirk, someday we should train. Izuku just smiled, somewhat embarrassed, and continued on their way. When they reached the exit, they saw that their other classmates were fighting with villains like their teacher and 13. They joined them and began to fight for a while, until the ground rumbled a little. They all turned around and could see a being with dark purple skin. It had quite large eyes and its teeth were quite pointy, but what stood out the most was that its brain could be clearly seen. Some students like Mineta or Kaminari were about to vomit. They all tensed up when they saw that the monster had grabbed a villain and thrown him like a baseball into the lake that was somewhat far away. Izuku swallowed some saliva and saw how Aizawa approached him quickly. The monster tried to hit him, but he slipped between his legs, got up and jumped on his back, and then caught both hands with his ropes. The villain used his strength quickly and slammed him against the ground, cracking it a little. He raised his arms and tried to crush Aizawa with both fists, but he moved from the place, got up and hit him in the face that did no harm. The monster, without turning to look at him with the palm of his hand, pushed him a few meters back. At that moment Katsuki appeared behind him and created an explosion in the back of the monster's neck. Izuku was alarmed and quickly went after her despite 13's words, who was beginning to think about what to do quickly. The others wanted to go help, but many villains appeared behind them and they had to fight. The monster on the other hand turned around and saw Katsuki, grabbed her by the foot and threw her to the ground, but Izuku caught her in his arms. They fell to the ground, but Aizawa quickly caught them with a rope and pulled it to bring them to his position. Aizawa. When we get to UA, you will be punished for putting yourself in danger. Leave it to me until help arrives. Izuku. But what if something happens to her? Aizawa. It's the price of the trade. Aizawa stood up and looked straight at the monster. It quickly ran towards him and Aizawa told them to get away. Katsuki didn't want to, but Izuku reluctantly moved it just in time, managing to dodge a shoulder charge from the monster. He looked at the 3 and quickly went for Izuku. He dodged a blow and then was held with both hands. Izuku tried to free himself, but the monster lifted him up. He opened his mouth, but a strong explosion in the stomach by Katsuki stopped him. He let go of Izuku and he fell to the ground, only to see how the monster's fist approached his friend's face. Izuku managed to catch her by the collar of her shirt and threw her from behind. She was about to claim, only to see head on how Izuku took the blow full in the face and flew a few meters. Aizawa unfortunately did not arrive in time, but began to fight as he could with the monster. Katsuki on the other hand, he got up and went to Izuku quickly, only to see him bleeding from the head. He quickly placed his hand on the wound, but Izuku took out a handkerchief from his backpack and Katsuki tied it on his forehead. He helped him get up, but Izuku took something else out of his backpack. Izuku. Give it to Aizawa-sensei. Katsuki. What is it? Katsuki held what appeared to be some kind of rope, but it had several blue circles all over the rope. Izuku. It's an electric rope. It's already charged and can knock 2 people unconscious together without any problem. It's a prototype, but I hope it works for him. Katsuki. Good nerd. Katsuki laid Izuku on the ground and threw the rope to Aizawa. He caught it and quickly caught a fist with it to watch in amazement as he got on his knees and tried to get up without success. Katsuki. It seems like he's stronger than that. Izuku. Now he's in emergency mode. His energy is spent 3 times faster, but he does more damage. Katsuki lifted Izuku again, but he told him to go and help the teacher, that he would go to a safe place. Katsuki did not trust his words much, but accepted, still doubting. He went to help him. Izuku on the other hand lay down behind some rocks and took out the last gadget he had in his backpack, and his favorite. They were titanium gloves created together with Hatsum and power loader that will double his strength in addition to being quite resistant to any physical attack. Izuku put them on and got up with a little effort to run towards the monster. He activated them halfway, and they shone with a green line. Izuku reached his destination, and the monster turned to look at him. He breathed deeply and dodged one of his attacks to respond with a blow that knocked out a tooth of the monster. Aizawa and Katsuki were surprised by such a feat, and were even more surprised to see how he hit the monster in the abdomen and face, making it retreat little by little. They both joined together and began to hurt him little by little. The monster was outnumbered, but got angry and caught one of Izuku's fists, slammed it against the ground several times, and then threw it at his teacher. Katsuki, on the other hand, managed to jump and aim at his face and cause an explosion that didn't hurt him much. He backed up and stood in front of the two who were on the ground, and with a smile, he formed a circle with his index finger and thumb. A small explosion began to create, and Katsuki lightly hit the top of the index finger, causing the explosion to shoot out like a bullet. The monster noticed that the attack caused a large wound, so he ran closer, while Katsuki began to use his attack more and more. After a few steps, the monster jumped and Katsuki stepped back, dodging the attack with both fists by the monster. A cloud of smoke was caused, and Izuku took the opportunity to hit him in the jaw, looking up from it. On the other hand, Aizawa grabbed his feet and knocked him to the ground. Katsuki jumped on Izuku's shoulders and in the air used his shot again to hurt him. Finally, Izuku finished with a blow to the face that seemed to have knocked him out. Aizawa looked at the two proudly, but his gaze changed to one of fear when he saw how the monster got up and grabbed Izuku by the waist. Katsuki tried to hit him but received a stop that made her back a few meters. On the other hand, Aizawa used her ropes, but the monster caught her with its fist and threw him quite far. Now concentrating on Izuku, she slammed him with both hands against the ground several times, about 6 or 7, until she left him on the ground and saw him bleeding. He smiled wickedly and held him by the face with his big hand to lift him slowly. Izuku was quite hurt, but what made him suffer in even more immense pain was feeling how the monster grabbed him by the shoulders and feet and bent him, as if trying to squeeze him. Upon hearing the screams, all his companions ran towards the monster, but it turned around and pointed its body towards them, as if it were threatening them. 13. What do you want? The monster began to slowly back away, but Katsuki ran towards it without it noticing and jumped to be at the same level as its face easier. Katsuki. Let go of the nerd. Katsuki created a fairly strong explosion that sent Izuku flying and, on the other hand, managed to get the monster on one of its knees. Katsuki quickly went to Izuku, as did 13 and his companions, while the rest along with Aizawa tried to finish off the monster. Katsuki. Nerd, can you hear me? 13. On one side, he is quite hurt, we must do first aid. Kaminari. But you have no face. 13. This is not the time for jokes. Katsuki noticed that Izuku tried to get up even though it could be seen that the bone in his leg was out of place and the one in his right arm had even pierced the skin while it was out. Katsuki hugged him to make him stop, but Izuku still kept trying. Katsuki. Don't move, stupid. Izuku ignored him until he felt Katsuki put a hand on his chest. Katsuki. For once in your life, stop getting up when you're hurt. Izuku gave up and fell to the ground. The ambulances and police were already out of the place, but hadn't entered yet because they didn't want the monster to escape. 13 carried Izuku and took him to the emergency exit where some officers and an ambulance were. 13. Ah, a quick hospital. The paramedics quickly placed him on a stretcher and noticed that he was falling asleep, so they began to heal him. They tried to put in place the bones that were most damaged at first glance, but noticed that there was a broken rib that was making direct contact with the heart and was not letting it beat properly. Izuku opened his eyes for a few seconds, only to see Katsuki next to the paramedics. He seemed to be talking to him, but he didn't hear anything and closed his eyes. 5 hours later. Izuku's mother was already at the hospital with Katsuki and his mother Mitsuki, and Almight and a wounded and tired Aizawa were doing their job of checking the student's health. The surgeon came out of the room with a relieved face, which gave Izuku's mother hope. Inko. How's my boy? Surgeon. I can't give you the details, but the person in charge will come in a few seconds. In fact, it's him. The man pointed to the man who was approaching them also with a relieved face, and he left. Doctor. You are Mrs. Inko Midoriya. Inko. Why yes. Doctor. Well, for now your son is out of danger. We had to set some broken bones in his right arm and left leg as well as some ribs, but now he is fine, he is stable, but needs a good rest. Maybe with the help of someone who can heal wounds, he will be as good as new in a month. Inko. Thank you very much, really thank you. Aizawa approached the man and began to talk to him and then followed him. On the other hand, Inko quickly entered the room and saw Izuku in a way she had never thought of. He had a syringe in his left arm, which was the healthy one that gave him serum. His left foot was in a cast as well as his right arm, and bandages around his entire chest and abdomen. You could see that he was breathing with difficulty, and they had sewn an opening in his head. Inko caressed his hair lightly and then kissed his forehead and held his left hand. She sat in a chair and began to cry without letting go of her son's hand. Almight felt bad at such a scene, so he went out for a few moments and ran into Aizawa. Aizawa. He fought well. Almight. I'm sure of it, sorry for being late. Aizawa. It could have been worse, so it's okay. Both men remained silent and All Might glanced at the room where Izuku was noticing that his mother did not let go of his hand for any reason and tried to talk to him. 1 month later. Izuku was at UA with crutches, right now he was in the hero class, but everyone was helping him and offering their help. He accepted the gestures kindly although he felt a little strange. With the help of recovery girl he healed well, but he was still resting. He sat down in his chair and everyone was around him. Izuku. Did something happen? Hiroshima. Man, I know it was to help us, but you went too far. Kaminari. They didn't want to tell us anything so we feared the worst. Izuku. Well, but now I'm fine so there shouldn't be that much of a problem. By the way, how did you defeat the monster? Todoroki. If you're talking about the Namab, that's what they called it. Minutes after you were taken to the hospital in an ambulance, All Might arrived and defeated him. Izuku. I see, it's fascinating, you can tell he's number 1. Hitsuki. Yes, but you're going to be resting. Izuku. I know, and I'm sorry for worrying you all, but I'm relatively well now. Everyone sighed, but then smiled at the green-haired man's attitude. The days continued well, and Izuku was finally able to fully recover and is as good as new. He had been examined and had been given several physical tests to determine his condition. He passed all of them without problems, so they gave him the go-ahead, and he was able to return to his normal training, and now he could help again in the development of prototypes. Since before they only let him help by thinking about what to do or the materials they should use, Izuku finally had his normal life again and was even more surprised when Aizawa notified them that the entire class was going to have a test because of what happened in USJ to better prepare them in case of a new attack. The exercise consisted of a couple pretending to be villains and another couple the heroes. The simple objective was to free a group of hostages trapped somewhere in the area that was going to be given to them and deactivate a bomb. Izuku was surprised by the exercise, but it would be in a few weeks so that they could prepare in the best way possible. Only within UA but outside, something that Izuku already had covered due to the training he had daily with All Might could improve a lot to no longer suffer again, something as painful as his last injury. Mental problems. Izuku was on a bus on his way to a city near his own, Tokyo, Japan. The reason for this was because a relative of his mother had become very ill, and his mother being the closest decided to offer to take care of him. Izuku did not want to leave her alone, and despite missing a test that Master Aizawa had prepared, she decided to support him. He had been traveling for about 5 or 6 hours, and they were close to arriving, about 10 minutes more at the most. As much as he tried to relax, he couldn't. He had a nightmare since the UA incident and the monster he fought. He knew he had already been defeated and was in police custody, but for some reason his body trembled every time his mind created an image of him. He sighed tiredly and went to the bus bathroom to splash some water on his face. He patted himself lightly and heard the bus stop. He quickly helped and unloaded his and his mother's suitcases, since they would be away for a month at least. All calm. Upon arriving at the house they entered and could see the sick person. It was Izuku's great uncle. Honestly he had never seen him or didn't remember doing so, but out of politeness he didn't say anything about it. He left his mother's suitcase in the room next door and his in the room above, unpacked his things and arranged them before going downstairs. Inko. Izuku, could you go to the pharmacy and get this? Inko gave him a sheet of paper with several names of medicine on it. Izuku nodded and left the house on his way to the nearest pharmacy, although he got lost on the way, so he decided to ask a lady. Already resuming the road he bought the pills and returned home tired. He looked somewhat pale and thought it was because of the lack of food, so he decided to buy a bag of candy. It wasn't the healthiest thing, but it would take away his hunger for a while, or so he hoped. He was walking when he felt a great heaviness in his eyes, but a loud sound made him open his eyes abruptly. It was the horn of a car. Izuku bowed and quickly returned to his house. He gave the pills to his mother and went up to sleep despite the time. 5, 10, 20 minutes passed and nothing, he couldn't sleep. He closed his eyes and remembered the sensation of his fragile body being in the hands of a monster. A small chill ran down his back and he decided to get up for a few seconds. Izuku. It must be hunger. Izuku went downstairs and made himself something to eat, but a few seconds after taking the first bite he ended up throwing it up. It had a horrible metallic taste. Izuku cleaned up the mess and his mother helped him lie down on the bed. She put a cloth with warm water on his head and went to check on his great uncle. Izuku began to breathe heavily until for a few seconds he fell asleep, peaceful and unbothered. No more mental images, no more discomfort. After a few hours he suddenly got up when he heard thunder. He looked out the window and noticed it was raining. Was it night or early morning? He really didn't know, but he opened the window a little to let in some air. He took out his phone and started watching news about sudden disappearances of ex-convicts. He went down to see how everything was and saw his mother asleep in her room. He decided to see his great uncle and everything was normal. He opened the refrigerator since his stomach was screaming at him to eat something, but there was nothing. He grabbed some money and went to the supermarket to buy something. When he arrived he noticed it was 3 a.m. The streets were clear, but the truth is that in the buildings there were people awake, or in clubs or bars. The nightlife in Japan was somewhat lively. Izuku went to a 24-hour supermarket and bought some instant soup that he really didn't like, but he didn't want to make things too complicated. After all, he was still somewhat pale and tired. He went to pay, and for a few seconds he swore he saw how the cashier's face turned into that of the monster. Izuku excitedly shook his head, and the man looked at him strangely. He gave him the change, and Izuku took it and then left, with his head down to avoid any more mishaps. Izuku. What's supposed to happen to me now? He walked a few blocks until he got home, went in and prepared his food, which as strange as it seemed fell very well to him. He sat on his bed with some laziness and tiredness and started watching viral videos until sleep over him and he ended up asleep. 5 hours later. Izuku woke up on the floor of the room with a blanket over him. He took it off and got up without any problems. He washed his face and went to see his mother who was feeding the sick man. Izuku greeted them both and sat down to watch TV. Inko. Did you take money? Izuku. If you weren't awake, sorry for not letting you know. Inko. Are you okay? You look very bad. Izuku. I'm fine, no problem. Izuku said that without turning to look at his mother. She looked at him for a few more seconds and got up to take him by the shoulders. Inko. You've slept so long, but you're still pale and have dark circles under your eyes. This isn't right. Izuku. We came to take care of my great uncle. Inko. But that doesn't mean I'm going to neglect you. Let's go to the doctor. Izuku. We can't leave him alone. Inko. It won't be long, besides he's asleep. After a few minutes, they were both at the doctor's. Izuku had already told him his symptoms and problems, and the doctor took the corresponding actions. Right now, he was sitting in his chair thinking until an idea came to his head. Doctor. You told me you're having problems, but you didn't tell me why. You just said it was several days ago. These types of symptoms don't just arise. Did you have a traumatic experience? Izuku just looked at the ground and Inko held his hand. Izuku. Well, a few weeks or months ago, I don't remember well. I had a fight. I am a student aspiring to become a hero, but in that fight I was seriously injured. Doctor. So you are afraid to try again? Are you afraid that because of the profession you aspire to something bad could happen to you? Izuku thought about it for a few seconds and denied it. Despite having been seriously injured and being almost on the verge of death, he was not afraid of it. Obviously yes, but he knew that was not his main fear now. Izuku. No, what I'm afraid of is the thing I fought. Doctor. Thing. Izuku began to recount what happened and the doctor leaned back in his chair. Doctor. Well, I have several possible illnesses in mind. The first could be a disorder caused by the lessons and injuries he suffered, perhaps damaged some brain function. It could also be insomnia as a side effect after the operations or the severity of the recent event. Izuku. And there are no other options. Doctor. More come to mind, but they are assumptions. I'll send you to a psychologist. Inko. Excuse me, we don't live in the city. We came for a sick relative and we don't know how long we'll be. Doctor. That complicates things. I could give your son an urgent appointment, but I don't know if you have the time or money to pay in case it is something more severe. Inko looked at Izuku. For a second she was about to say she didn't care, but Izuku stopped her. Izuku. I can hold it, they are just nightmares. Izuku smiled, but his mother noticed without problem that it was not a smile to suppress her fear. For a moment she felt so much pain seeing her son pretending to be okay, but the doctor spoke. Doctor. Well, the final decision is up to you, but I must warn you of something. It is common among patients with mental problems. The more time passes, the more serious they become, so think about it. They both left the office and Inko looked at her son for a few seconds. He was with his face down and she held him by the shoulders. Inko. I don't like this, but I could buy you some bus tickets to take you home, send you some money, and get you a full checkup. Izuku. I'm fine. I'm not leaving you alone, Mom. Inko sighed and they returned home. Izuku on the other hand asked his classmates for his notes and began to do his homework. The hours passed and it got dark. Izuku had already finished his homework and was in the backyard sitting in a chair when a car passed at full speed. Izuku did not take much importance until seconds later a loud bang was heard. He left the house immediately and noticed that the car had hit a pole. Izuku went to the place and opened the door. It was stuck so it was a little difficult for him, but he managed it. He saw several people and took them out one by one. Only one person was missing who was in the back. When he grabbed him by the arm he got up and pushed Izuku. Being unprepared, he fell to the ground and saw how he ran away in the opposite direction. Izuku? Wait. Man. Shit, they're not going to add. Before he could finish his sentence a car ran over him with force and left him lying on the ground. Izuku got up and quickly went to the place where the man was. Although the car had already fled, Izuku turned him around and saw how his right arm was completely broken. He tried to do something, but seconds later the police arrived quickly and surrounded the place. Izuku quickly approached an officer, although he shocked him. Police. Get down. Izuku. But. Police. Get down. All the police officers stared at him and Izuku lay down on the ground. The policeman approached him and was about to put the handcuffs on him until another stopped him. Policeman 2. That's not how things work here, rookie. I'll get up, kid. Izuku got up somewhat stunned by the blow. When he got up he realized that the other officers were putting the people who were on the ground into several vehicles. Police 2. I called for backup, kid, and I saw you running towards them. Sorry about my partner, but he's not used to the job yet. Izuku. Okay. Police 2. And you stop doing stupid things, they might report you for this. Several ambulances arrived at the scene and took away the most injured, while others attended to the less injured. On one hand Izuku was about to leave, but saw how one of the men was trying to escape. Man. They're going to kill you all. You should leave or let me go. Police 2. Sure, now get in the car. Izuku was already on the other side of the street when he heard loud footsteps. For a moment he thought it would be a group of people or something like that, but his blood froze when he saw the same monster from last time behind the officers. It began to hit and strangle each of them without much effort. It had no mercy on any of them. Izuku hid behind a wall and began to breathe heavily. Izuku. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Izuku began to repeat the same question to himself over and over until he heard the footsteps getting closer and closer. He swallowed some saliva and took a deep breath. He left his hiding place and hit the monster in the face, only this time it was bigger. It looked even more terrifying. Its teeth were now gray and seemed to be made of iron as they shone. Its brain was red and seemed to be about to explode at any moment. In addition to its black eyes, its tongue was longer, or so it seemed. Izuku stepped back and the monster hit the ground, leaving a crack and causing Izuku to fall to the ground. He got up quickly, but received a hard blow to the chest that made him crash into a wall. He took a glass bottle in his hand and broke it against the ground. He got up and the monster tried to hold him, but couldn't. On the other hand, Izuku buried the bottle in its tongue. It took it away as if nothing and then broke it in its hands. Izuku hit it again, only this time in the stomach, but the monster grabbed him by the foot and threw him to the ground. Izuku hit his head very hard, but still managed to get up, only to be stepped on the back and brutally beaten without being able to defend himself. After a few seconds he felt himself getting lighter and lighter until the monster grabbed him by the face, began to apply pressure as if he wanted to tear it off, and succeeded. At that moment when everything was dark, Izuku suddenly opened his eyes, falling out of his bed. It had all been a dream. He left the room and saw his mother, in addition to checking on his great uncle. He left the house to get some fresh air, and at that moment the same car of his dreams passed quickly. Izuku blinked several times quickly, and after a few seconds it crashed. Izuku at that moment entered the house and locked himself in his mother's room. He did not want to go out. He heard the police sirens and another crash. After a few seconds the arrival of an ambulance was heard and Izuku's mother woke up to see what was happening. Izuku, on the other hand, he wanted to stop her, and even more so when he heard footsteps. They were loud just like in his dream. He went to the bathroom and washed his face. He was sweating a lot and was shaking, but he calmed down when he noticed his mother coming out and entering the house. Izuku. What happened? Inko. A crash. It seems they were trying to escape from the police. Izuku. And the footsteps. Inko. Which footsteps? Mine. Izuku. Not the ones outside. Inko. Maybe the police's or the paramedics are in a hurry. Izuku. No, not those. Footsteps that echoed all around, as if someone huge was coming. At that, Inko looked more worried at her son and gave him a hug. Inko. Nobody's coming, calm down, we're fine, nothing bad is going to happen. For a moment as they separated, Izuku swore he saw the monster's black eyes on his mother and quickly walked away. At that, he fell to the floor and quickly went up to his room. Inko followed him and knocked on the door several times without any response. She sighed, and as much as she hated the idea, she went to get her cell phone and bought the bus ticket. 2 days later. Izuku was standing at the bus station even though he didn't want to leave his mother alone, she also didn't want to leave her son alone for so long, but she knew it would be best for him to go to a hospital as soon as possible. The bus arrived and they both said goodbye. Izuku got on and the road was quite quiet. For a moment his headphones stopped working and only half-spoken voices could be heard, but they weren't words but a kind of murmurs. He took off his headphones and put them in his backpack, thinking that he should buy new ones. At that moment someone touched his shoulder, and he turned to the bus aisle seeing a woman with her brain out. She began to murmur something, and Izuku stood up aggressively in a defensive position. The woman backed away, and after a few seconds Izuku saw everything clearly. "Izuku? I'm really sorry, I don't know what's wrong with me, sorry." Izuku bowed and the woman excused him without problems. "Woman? Do you want water or maybe I should take some pills?" "Izuku? Do you have anything for insomnia?" The woman nodded and brought him a pill with a glass of water. Izuku took it and thanked the woman. She left, and Izuku fell asleep a few minutes later. 3 hours later. Izuku arrived at his hometown and quickly went home, unpacked his things and prepared something to eat. He was starving. It was something simple, some meat with rice. It never fails. He noticed it was early, and that classes at UA should be half over, so he went quickly and ran into Almight. "Almight. I didn't think I'd see you again so soon, you said it would be a month." "Izuku? I have to discuss something important with you." "Almight. Go ahead." Izuku began to tell her all the problems he was having lately due to the confrontation he had with the monster and the consequences. Almight looked at him and took his shoulder. "Almight. Go to the infirmary and tell recovery girl the same thing, she will know what to do." "Izuku. Aren't you going to join me?" Almight. "Sorry, I have to teach classes, but later tell me what he prescribed." Izuku said goodbye to All Might and went to the infirmary. Upon entering he saw an elderly woman, somewhat short in stature. She had glasses with pink frames and a white coat. Izuku entered and the woman quickly went to him. "Recovery G. How can I help you, young man?" "Izuku. You see." Izuku told the woman everything and she listened to his problems. She thought for a few seconds and decided that it would be good to do some psychological tests to determine his problem exactly, and so it was. Izuku was tested several times with psychological tests and tests. The results would not come out that same day obviously, but recovery girl before the answers already imagined the result. Izuku left the infirmary after an hour and noticed that it was break. He went to his classroom and ran into Todoroki alone. He was looking out the window at something, but he didn't know what. Izuku approached and greeted her. "Todoroki. What are you doing here?" Izuku. "Well, I came back earlier than I thought." Todoroki. "Why?" Izuku. "Well, a few minor problems, nothing to be alarmed about." Todoroki looked at him without believing him much, but decided to do it. Izuku sat next to her, and they began to talk for a while. That while took up the entire break, and by the time Izuku was about to leave everyone and his teacher Aizawa had arrived. Aizawa. "Wow, you've arrived." Izuku. "Yes, but I only came to check something in the infirmary, I'm leaving." Izuku said goodbye to everyone and left the classroom. He went home, but not before stopping by the infirmary to ask when they would give him the results. They told him that in a week, and now he went home, laid down and fell asleep. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.